Hi everyone, welcome to our session on political and consensual crimes in South Africa. This content is based on Learning Unit 5, covering theme 1 to 4, and looks at prescribed material 1 and prescribed material 3. Here are our outcomes for theme 1 to 4. If we have a look at the nature and forms of political crimes within the South African context, political crime is most often seated in a specific ideology or impetus. So there's no specific category that exists for political crime in the South African Police Service crime administration system. Political crime is also referred to as state crime or crimes by the state to the detriment of its people. Governments can be regarded as organizations created by the people for the people, and when governments commit crime, they are acting against the will of the people. It's therefore very important to contextualize crime committed by a government against the backdrop of organizational crime. In the South African context, corruption is the most common form of organizational crime in the public sphere. Organizational crime is categorized as an all-encompassing concept that includes criminal acts by non-profit entities such as government departments, non-government organizations or NGOs, and a subcategory of organizational crime is corporate crime. Corporate crime is committed by organizations whose ultimate goal is to make a profit. So corporations will ordinarily not commit political crime unless it is in collaboration with a political entity or to advance political reasons. Corruption is currently one of the most frequently committed crimes by the South African government officials within our context. Corruption is a statutory crime committed in both the public and the private domains. The difference is that corruption by private companies is usually detected, processed, and punished, whereas corruption by the government or government officials is often shrouded in secrecy and masked by means of very deceptive maneuvers. So corruption is a very complex crime that requires collaboration between two or more parties. State capture is the latest form of corruption, and it occurs when politicians allow private individuals or companies to shape politics to their own monetary advantage and to receive benefits from this arrangement. In most cases, the arrangement is to the detriment of the broader society because it undermines the efficiency of the state through the provision of poor service quality and the appointment of less than capable people. Prerequisites for the internal policing of state crime should be aligned according to the following principles. So the first one is separation of powers. Secondly, through decentralized authority, and thirdly, through significant autonomy for policing agencies. Whistleblowing is fundamentally defined as the disclosure of information either by former or current members of a public or private organization of a specific illegal or other undesirable practice that occurs inside that organization, and we do this in order to attract some or other form of corrective action. South African anti-corruption measures. So the South African government has always been aware that corruption and organized crime needs to be tackled firmly and with enough resources to ensure effectiveness. The Anti-Corruption Coordinating Committee came into being with the following objectives. First of all, to ensure coordination and integration of anti-corruption initiatives in the public service. Secondly, avoiding duplication of initiatives and efforts in the fight against corruption in the public service. Providing a forum for the various departments to share information on anti-corruption prevention, detection, and investigation. And serving to oversee and monitor the implementation of the public service anti-corruption strategy. And lastly, by ensuring an effective implementation of the public service anti-corruption strategy. The SAPS's anti-corruption strategy consists of 4 pillars. The first one is the prevention pillar, and this is creating an ethical culture and employment vetting. Secondly, detection. So here we develop policies to support whistleblowing and internal audits. Thirdly, investigation, so providing for internal investigations as well as cooperating with other government departments in order to investigate corruption by SAPS employees. And the fourth stage is the resolution stage, which ensures that disciplinary action, criminal prosecuting, and civil recovery are instituted. If you consult prescribed material 3 on Learn, you will access the information required to answer the outcome that focuses on specific theories that attempt to explain political crimes. Moving on to consensual crimes, these are also called public order and morality offences, and they can be defined as transgressions against the moral fabric of society. So in other words, their illegality is as a result of perceived harm because they conflict with and undermine existing social policy, accepted public opinion, and moral rules. Consensual crimes need to be declared wrongful by the enactment of some or other law. They are acts that violate the norms or threaten the perceived well-being of society, and they are prohibited evil and usually have no complaining participants. People who engage in consensual crimes do so voluntarily, and harm to others is not an objective in their behavioral motivations, and that's why we call them victimless crimes. Perpetrators of our consensual crimes often compare their actions to buying a product, negotiating a price, or taking their business elsewhere if they are not satisfied with the service or goods. Commercial sex work can be defined as the provision of non-marital sexual intercourse for remuneration by mutual agreement between workers, their employees, and if applicable, their clients. Although sex work and brothel keeping is currently illegal in South Africa, it still flourishes. As such, sex work is above all else a commercial activity where financial gain is the main motivation of service providers. Sex workers can be male, female, or transgendered, and sex workers are generally regarded or come from impoverished backgrounds and have usually been physically, sexually, and emotionally abused by their parents or partners. Most of them did not complete school and they lack the skills needed in the formal labor market. Some sex workers enter the profession to support their drug addiction, while others fall prey to substance abuse while in the profession when they use it as a coping strategy. In South Africa, the voluntary buying and selling of adult sex and all sex work-related acts are criminal offences in terms of the Criminal Law Amended Act 32 of 2007. Debates about the decriminalisation of sex work re-emerged prior to the hosting of the 2010 FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Some people maintained that decriminalised sex work could benefit some women who face abject poverty, and that the hosting of the tournament posed an opportunity to streamline responses to and strengthen the human rights of sex workers. A call was made for a moratorium on the criminalisation of sex work during the tournament. Supporters of the free choice view argue that the decriminalisation of commercial sex work would have a positive impact on many role players. They have highlighted several advantages and claim that decriminalisation will do the following. First of all, relieve desperate women of further degradation, which currently results from legal sanctions against commercial sex work. Decriminalisation will also eliminate the barriers that sex workers experience in accessing healthcare, social services, and legal assistance. It will also ensure that scarce resources within law enforcement and the legal system will be used more effectively instead of dealing with loitering and solicitation. It will also avoid police harassment and brutality towards sex workers. It will acknowledge that many women engage in sex work in order to earn income and create opportunities for themselves and their dependents, and it will go far in reducing women's financial dependence on men. Commercial sex work gives workers equality with men and provides some control and stability in their personal and economic lives. It is said to also facilitate regulation of an industry that is currently run by brothel owners and pimps. Existing legal prohibitions force sex workers to operate underground and outside the ambit of the law. This extra-legal activity creates opportunities for physical violence and financial exploitation of sex workers. Decriminalization will also allow sex workers to organize themselves into labor groups. These labor groups will be able to negotiate safer work and better working conditions for their members. This will ensure labor protection and correct the imbalances between workers, their employees, clients, and state authorities. Facilitation of outreach and exit services for sex workers can also be something that is focused on. So this means that sex workers will be provided with social welfare, healthcare, and legal aid services. And it could also entail health screening of sex workers and improved health of workers and their clients. In addition, sex workers can be assisted to find other employment. Objectors to the decriminalization of sex work argue that sex work has a negative impact on society. So they put forward various arguments in support of their stance. A major point relates to the view that commercial sex work causes a decline in public morals and the degradation of neighborhoods. Substance abuse refers to the illegal use of a product to achieve a desired mental, emotional, or physical effect. Substance abuse can be defined in narrow terms as a pattern of substance use which has become maladaptive to the user. Substance abuse occurs at all levels of society. Substance abusers may be rich or poor, young or old, and substance dependency appears to be increasing regardless of differences in socioeconomic status, age levels, marital status, educational levels, or even chosen occupations. Experts believe that most drug addicts fall into abuse slowly, starting with alcohol and cannabis or marijuana, and we know this locally as dagga, and then move on to more dangerous drugs as their need for a more intense effect or high increases. This is known as the gateway model of substance abuse, where use and the types of products that are used will alter and increase over time. Abuse is usually initiated during adolescence, with South African evidence indicating alarming levels of use of tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, and even hard drugs such as cocaine, heroin, and amphetamines among school-going and adolescent populations. Content from these slides was based on your prescribed material 1, a Southern African perspective on fundamental criminology.